Okay?
Yes, sir.
Got the metaphor?
Understood, sir.
All right.
To carry on from what we were talking about, the concept of the mastery took a long time for the cook to achieve. And this is also statistically correlated and established by Mihaly, a researcher and psychologist, that it takes about 10,000 hours for a person to achieve mastery in any art. So, this is also the reason why certain competencies are elevated, or certain people are given certain degrees or titles after a certain number of years based on their practice in any skill. Now, how did I apply the concept of speed trap or trying to slow it down? One of the ways is that I love biking. I also made sure that I started biking rather taking my motorcycle to work because it was easier in Bangalore's roads. I started cycling as well at certain scenarios, and I also used to try and walk to work, and thereby it was different experiences. When the speed slowed down in the cycle, I was able to understand the terrain, maybe look at the roads, understand the route through which I was going. And when I was walking, I was even able to see the bushes, sometimes the even the mongooses which is getting across, the birds in the trees. Sometimes there are I could see when the water levels in wells would be changing, the birds which should come through, etc. So when you slow down the speed, the palette is also more visible to you and you see the details. So that was
Beautiful,
one
beautiful,
experience.
beautiful, Tintin. Yeah.
Moving on to experiences and new experiences, this was a scenario which was it's a rigidity for me because I was in my comfort zone. I used to go to work, come back. I would not go beyond what it was. But there was a time a long time ago when it was used to be almost random. So I set about to do this, especially at the time when I went to my hometown. So going to the sea was one experience. I always used to go near the sea, play by the sea, and there was a degree of fear which was induced, saying, "Okay, this is dangerous. This is something which you can." Now, paradoxically, before I learned to swim, I used to go into the sea, and with people, I learned how to ride the waves. Sometimes when they're above your head, there's a certain measure you have to dive into them, into the churning sea.
Tintin, wait for some time. There is some problem with the internet. Uh,
My internet, sir.
Tintin, currently there's a problem with not necessarily your internet. The words are diffused. Just to slow down a little bit.
Okay, sir. Am
All
I
right.
audible now?
Yeah, talk.
Yes. So stepping back.
Audible all the time, but the words are unclear. Yeah.
Okay, sir. If I get dissonant again, please tell me. So my experiences with the sea, the first thing was about fear. Now I learned how to get into the sea, how to be with the waves, and sometimes crest the waves, sometimes dive into them with some of the fellow fishermen and friends. And later, with a little education about swimming, when I learned about the possibilities of drowning or not being able to control myself, was when that fear set in. So then, this time after about 10, 15 years, I went to the sea. I started swimming. I took a canoe, a kayak out into the water as well with my friends. At first, trying to go into the sea and then trying to go beyond the waves to a level where it was serenity was an experience. After a few hours of it, we were just lying there, and then the reward was lying in the sea. And you're lying on a like a piece of elevated board. Your eye level is with the horizon, and lying. It's almost like you're lying in the water and seeing the sunset in front of you. So that's something which you can never experience if you stay in the comfort zone, which was the beach. Another thing, what I did was the last month I went biking with my friend. So he has this marvelous new bike, which is like a monster. It is 100 cc more than our beloved Maruti 800. And putting all that power in a small within two wheels, you can imagine the size the power and the complexity of it. So without realizing it, initially when I took it out in the parking lot, I could not control it. So I was a bit afraid. And I said, okay, this is something which maybe let me leave it. Then we went on a ride. We went to a cliff and we sat there for some time looking at the water. And we coming back, I said, this is my chance. If I don't drive it now, I never will. So I said, okay, you lower the seat so that I can at least make sure that my feet touch the ground for control because it is bigger than me. I could put my tip of my feet down and then started driving from there till Bangalore. If I was not careful, I would just glance down on the speedometer. We're going at 130, 140, and it's still increasing. So, but that experience was very different. And I was comparing that to when I was driving my bullet, riding my bullet to Coimbatore. And once when I took off and tried to take it to its maximum at 120, the feeling was next second you're going to fly because that engine is operating, the vehicle is like bouncing on the surface. Here at 130, 140, it's like there is still potential to go. So that was another experience very recently. And then coming back, I started picking up my guitar, trying to learn some new songs. And that was like going back to the old steps, trying to learn the motor skills, expand from what I was doing all this time, trying to learn strumming, flat picking, different ways of rhythm as well. So that was again an area where I was supposedly a master, but I found a new branch where I had to now express myself in. These were some of the new experiences I tried to take. And then at work as well, stepping down a couple of levels, trying to learn a different methodology of project management and learning it, relearning it was another new experience. Moving on, other areas was with respect to memories, behaviors. So this is also where I was touching on the fears or those kinds of emotions which you are subject to. Now, the fear of drowning, the fear of water, which was there from some time, was an experience. Now, you can maybe clinically or theoretically or practically drown maybe only once, but you can crest the waves, you can go there and experience it multiple times if you go beyond that fear. Now, having understood that this was a fear and the cause for it, I was able to at least overcome it. And that was which gave me the confidence to again get on that bike. What if I fall? If I fall, I fall. So my friend said, if it falls, just let it drop. We'll see what happens. You just roll away. So that's it. Get on it and then figure it out. The first time when I was trying to come to Coimbatore alone, okay, what is going to happen if there's a puncture? Okay, if there's a puncture, we'll figure a way out. On the way back, there were a few dogs on the road. So they were running ahead. So I stopped the bike. After some time, they started sniffing at me. They sat there. I sat there along with the dogs. Then a lady came and chased them away. I said, thank you. And I rode on. So experiences will come and we will overcome them. But at many scenarios, these blocks, when you encounter them, you understand them, then there is a way to move forward. If nothing else, just do it and see what happens. Okay, this is what will happen. If it happens, we will see. And that brought me to the thinking of creative therapy, of how Sir had talked about it and how it was being undertaken by, I think there's only one creative therapist in the world, right, Sir?
Yeah, that is Veena Ganesh, of course.
Yes, sir. I think that concept might seem so intuitive once you know it, and I've been trying to apply it to myself as well. Even today, for an instance, like in the morning, there was a lot of disturbances, some negativity, and I knew I had to again get into today, and there is going to be today's session. Now, how do I overlay my thoughts above the irritating thoughts or the negative sensations? Firstly, I took the work which I had done right now, this write up, I went through it once more. I thought a little about it. So that was the first overlay. Then I went to the terrace where we have a mulberry bush. And today's visitors were some quails, or what you call quail in Malayalam. So they are there to eat some of the fruits. Sometimes we take them. If they're faster, they take them. Last week they were the bulbuls. Sometimes I take a few of them and give them to the squirrel down below as well. So he comes for the staple of nuts, and sometimes I give berries as well. Then stood there for a little time. There was a green parakeet which flew by. That's a beautiful bird. We should see it in flight, not in a cage. That's when you actually see a tatama, or a parakeet as we call it, in its true elegance. Came down, listened to some music. I went randomly, looked at some of the sessions in Genius Choice website as well, sir. And those were some of the overlay thoughts. In between interruptions came, there was a plumber who came, there was my friend who had a call. I called up Dr. T to inquire about his health. Usually these would all be, I would be irritated thinking, why do I need to take this call? Why do I need to talk about that? Why do I need to do some cleanup? Put the clothes for washing. But then thought about Rangan and come back to it, do it, come back, focus on the work. And so some form of mini creative therapy was also practiced.
Yeah, of course. Creativity therapy. Every one of you must be masters in that. In a way, what I am doing can be looked at from the angle of creativity therapy. So that is to take you to the next level of you, next orbit of you, give you the potentialities to manage your journey to its fulfillment. The essence of creativity therapy also is that. Uh, at this point, when Tintin mentioned it, I would like to give a clue about the essential principle of creativity therapy. Therapy often means treatment, okay, rebuilding perspectives, gaining control over the uncontrollable situation. So, in creativity therapy, there is no focus on the given condition in the past, what happened in the past, what is the problem, what are the bottlenecks, and so on and so forth. No focus is normally done on that. Normally done on that meaning that's the attitude of the therapist, but the other person might tend to talk about the problems and history about things like that. So, in order to respect that person's activity, for some time the uh, so-called therapist would listen to that, but that's not of any concern, because the focus of creativity therapy is to help you, help the other person, other individual, to develop a perspective, to develop competencies, to develop mindsets, to develop attitudes and ways of looking at oneself and the world at a much more higher dimension, so that whatever things that, whatever entities, whatever phenomena, whatever thoughts, whatever behaviors, whatever that disturbed the equilibrium of the mind becomes uh, unimportant, becomes ineffective. That's all. You got the point?
Yes, sir.
That is essence of creativity therapy. That you can also try. If someone comes to you talking about the problems, for the sake of it, listen for some time, but tell him or her that that's why anyway. What is the point of recollecting it? And the very act of recollecting will make it more reinforced. Let us look at the next step. In that sense, creativity therapy is simple. Look at the next step and take the next step, so that the existing step becomes unimportant. Take the next level, so that the existing level of so-called problems, if any, that becomes irrelevant. At a mild dose, you can always apply in your day-to-day life. If something happens, some disturbing thought happens, go to the next level, adopt a next stand, change the angle of the camera, turn the kaleidoscope. That's all. That's also a so-called rudiment of creativity therapy applied to oneself. And in the coming world or in the ongoing world, I would say everybody should be a creativity therapist also, to help oneself and to help other people. I remember one of the quotes I had shown to you in the very beginning of the program, the quote by Sidney Parnes, the president of the Creative Education Foundation in the US. I think you must remember that. So he is envisaging a future where every individual is capable of liberating themselves and liberating other people, which the so-called mystics used to do. I hope you remember that. So every one of you should be a therapist. And forget about the name therapist. In other words, people should get answers to their problems when they come and talk to you. That's all. That's all. This is an aspect which Ramesh also mentioned, that giving aspect. Why you become so competent? What is the purpose of your enlightened awareness about existence? Of course, it will serve a purpose of the you. And you must reflect that potentiality so that other people can see themselves and get liberated from their blocks. So that's why I elaborated a little bit on creativity therapy. That's the therapy part, but now I hope you understood the essence of it. All right, Tintin, proceed.
Can I interrupt here?
Why not?
Um, as you were saying that we should be more giving, and we should also try to impart some of your and satori moments or glimpses to others. So I'm just trying to understand from everyone here, have you tried doing that, and what is the kind of reception from people whom you have tried giving or imparting?
That's a very relevant and a very beautiful, very practical point. Come on, good.
Yes,
Yeah.
Parvati, I have. And
What is your experience, Nitya?
my experience was I felt people are drawn to me, some kind of like, there is, say, the need for them to talk to me sometimes. And whether I search them or not, like they come to me and discuss whatever is bothering them, or um, yeah, like with the problems or anything that they want to share, they kind of approach me voluntarily. That's what I've experienced in my workplace. And I was also doing some mentoring through another organization, but that is actually a bit structured. Um, that there was one or two people who contact me otherwise, not through the program, just because of my personal interaction with them. So it has been very positive, and making any changes to another person's life, it is very humbling and rewarding at the same time. So um, I'm just thinking that if I can do more often, that will be much better than my current job itself. But I haven't reached that position yet. But something I'm keen to do actually.
All right, Nitya, beautiful. But there was another aspect to Parvati's question. Did
Hmm.
you, I think Parvati also implied whether you faced any bottlenecks, any problems or complexities in that, as I understand. Am I right, Parvati?
Yeah, reception from the
The
people.
extent of reception of no, your delivery, whatever is delivered, how was it received? But in Nitya's context, apparently it was received well
Well,
because, as Nitya mentioned, everybody approached her, Parvati.
yeah, yeah.
So uh, that is, in a way,
Except
Nitya is lucky.
except my own children sometimes.
that, uh, that is because of their familiarity trap. Nothing can be done. That is
Yeah,
not their mistake per se, because
no,
the very system becomes sort of insensitive by the familiarity trap.
yeah,
You know, that is why, and
yeah.
it's a problem. And but do not. What I say is that whether they receive it or not, continue to do what you are doing, Nitya.
Mm, yeah,
At a certain moment of time, definitely, invariably, surely they will recollect maybe every sentence verbatim, and they will benefit out of it. I am talking out of my own experience. In fact, I was not sent to schools. I really wanted to go to school. You know why? To avoid the treatment of my father. I never bothered. I don't think I ever listened to him properly. But subsequently, after decades and decades,
Mm-hmm.
even when even those ideas which I consider that I have not listened to him, even that comes into my mind. But by the time the
Mm-hmm.
father is out of the world, that's a different issue. That's not important. So do not get disheartened by that. Continue to represent the you the way you is. Do not dilute it. Go on.
Well,
Right.
I have one incident to narrate. It may take a little small time. I have a I have never raised my voice or become confrontational with any of my colleagues directly so far in my career. But there was an instance that I had to be confrontational, and it was in public space. Public space in the sense it was like we have got an open office, so something like that also happened, and I don't know what like normal me would have been feeling so much about it after that, but I felt very cool after that. I didn't think that I said anything wrong or or anything much bad about it, but it was just a moment that it happened, and yeah, it was a uncomfortable experience in the normal routine, but that kind of uncomfortableness also I have to manage, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah, of course, but and perhaps more than that, you may have to be a little more creative in repairing any
Oh,
slight
yes,
damage that
yes,
happened, and you have to
yes,
redeem the situation back.
yes, yes,
That you have to try also.
yes, I will. Yeah.
Good. Anybody else answering to the question of Parvati? Ramesh?
Yes, sir. So in terms of giving again a two directions. One is from an education perspective. So I keep consulting two schools, and there I've been helping them in terms of setting up their design thinking department and all that, and continuously keep talking about the teachers in terms of how do we approach students in terms of that. That is one way. There's nothing monetary about it, but it is more to do with. Mm, and I feel that space. So what I have, I can share. So it's more about sharing. So that sharing gives a bit of uh, 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 it's like it's like an inspirations for other people where the other person feels like okay, so they can elevate from where they are at present to the next level. So that itself gives a good feel to me. That is one reason. The another one is again where sometimes people take advantage. So normally this happens during the interns where I keep guiding lots of interns. So during that, sometimes they come very specific for some. Then after that, it is. Uh, when the person who is receiving from us looks at it very functional, it sometimes a bit bothers. So because we are approaching that mentorship not only from a perspective of sharing that knowledge, but more than sharing, we are also emotionally sharing that knowledge. It is not a functional sharing knowledge. So when the other person sees it as a very functional, sometimes it bothers, but I'm trying to overcome that perspective.
Beautiful. That is very important, very true. He touched upon a very important aspect. Unless you, at the same time, unless you have that emotional background of orchestra, of violin, you cannot do the song perfectly, right, Ramesh? Yeah. But the other person is just concerned about the dialogue. They are not bothered about the orchestra. I mean, they are not concerned about the violin inevitably present in you. You do that out of your love and concern, but they don't care. That's a problem. Perhaps Parvati also must be implying that when she asked that question, I suppose.
Yep, yep, in a way, yes.
Yes, sir. So, but yeah, not nowadays it's like last time also I was touching on the same point. So I don't look at that when they are responding back is where one type is that what is in for me is more functional and emotional. So I also say that okay, I am emotional. I also expect them also to be emotional. But if they are not, it should not bother me is where I'm moving toward.
That is, of course, your greatness, Ramesh. No doubt about that. As I told you, you just do. The
Hmm.
rose is a rose is a rose. Whether the person takes care of it or not, rose has to be a rose. Every one of you be a rose. When you do, so long as you are able to do, so long as the other person is in the receptor role, whether they respect you or love you or appreciate you for whatever you do, you just do. Inevitably, that is our predicament, Ramesh.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's our predicament, Parvati. So just do not dilute what you do.
Hmm. Yeah.
If it is possible to be done, do it. That's all. Finished.
That is always whenever that type of feeling comes in, so I recollect your wording saying that even if there is 1% in the audience, so make sure that that 1% is receiving what you want to give.
Exactly, Ramesh. Exactly, exactly. That's all. I mean, Ramesh, that is the universal truth, Ramesh.
Hmm.
Universal truth. And, metaphorically, millions of seeds are flying out of a tree. One of them falls into the most of a fertile area, and that comes into the full bloom, justifying the seed production of that tree. Get the point?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's all.
Hmm.
We just cannot insist that every seed produced by me should fall into fertile lands and bloom into a tree. That's not a universal condition, unfortunately. Pavadi. That's all. Finished. All right. All right. I suppose everybody understood the question of Pavadi. It's an important question because your heart is involved. As a genius, your heart is involved in everything that you do, and there may be times when you may not be able to easily escape the responses from the other person. But Ramesh said, you just forget it. That's all, Parvati.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not.
Oh,
I am never bothered. So
yeah,
the thing
beautiful.
is only when they are in extreme need or in some critical issue, then they come and they, some at least at work level, right? The way they approach uh, may should have been different, and so at that point in time, they have no other way but to do the right. So
Of course, your situation in the work is like Ramesh said, they see it quite functionally,
yeah, it is a
but
transaction for them, but then when they are in an extreme problem, then they realize the depth of the transaction and the approach, everything will just show by itself.
yeah, in which case it is good if it happens. It is you are
Yeah, it
lucky. All right.
happens because ultimately they also have to solve problems, right? One or the other.
Yeah.
Unless you are you have the right linkages, if you try to manipulate at any stage, things will go wrong. It is when if you're not correct, if you're not complete. So that is something which I live by. I told you in one of my earlier sessions also. Firm, correct, complete is something which I live by. And it, I can see that any problem, I can see one of these is not there.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's a very interesting observation. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I am compelled to tell every one of you uh, completely, I mean, be firmly, correctly, completely, you know, uh, sensitive to your own understanding and go by that. Pavadi has got the invariant, the essence of what she said now, firm, correct, complete. And similarly, every one of you, I want to hear this kind of a statement from every one of you. Not for me, but for my verification, like the test. Good. Yes. The time, because by the time constraints, and we need only very tip of the iceberg discussions as of now. Yeah, this is over, and I appreciate a significant point being raised, significant and very correlated point brought in by Parvati, because that is very significant. That's what you have to do. That is what you should be doing in the future. So at that time, one of the realities possible in that level of your functioning is what Parvati pointed out. Yeah, Parvati, you are right. Even I have experienced that situation many times. So it's very important just to do it. That's all. All right, Tintin, please continue.
Thank you, sir. So we were talking about creative therapy and going on to knowing, doing, and being.
Yeah,
This, I think, is one of the most maybe
yeah. Of course, it is a critical spoke of our existential
yes.
aspect at a certain orbit. Yes.
And the problem is it's so common that we don't realize it.
Tintin, the entire world does not realize it. The world is quite comfortable and happy that they know a lot. Seldom or only a minuscule part of their knowing is translated into doing. Yes, of course. And only a minuscule of that is transported into their being. Of course. That's why you are all the rare beings of genius in self. Very true.
And I've also, upon reflection, realized and come to a conclusion that my wife is more advanced in this trilogy. So she's mostly in the being state, doing state, and going towards being. So she will directly jump into the doing and there itself realize or pick up the knowings, whatever is necessary. So I think that was a knowing which I understood from that and a learning for me as well. So
Good, good,
mostly,
good. Of course, all knowing has been developed out of doing only. All the knowing, all the subject matters that is taught in the schools and the universities, every bit of so-called knowing has been originally developed out of doing only, Tintin. So the whole lot of knowings have been developed by those who are capable of doing, and now the modern, subsequent generations are learning that knowing, so that they don't have to try out all kinds of doing. And then that doing is to be translated into, sorry, that doing is to be translated into doing, for which the cooperation of the being is essential, depending upon the level of knowing and the level of doing involved. All right, yeah.
so there were certain scenarios I realized that what happens is you're comfortable with a bookish knowledge or just knowing the theoretical concept of it without trying to get into it. That is like an easy state to be, and you're amassing information, but you're not applying it to develop your knowledge. So that is something which I'm trying to reinforce on a day-to-day level as well, and see, okay, where am I with respect to myself? Am I applying it? Okay, I have so many songs which I think I have in my list. Am I playing them? Am I trying to do this? Or sometimes just do it and then from there take on things and then evolving from it. Now, that is also tying on to the next thought process or idea of about free flowing. So, one thing what I'm practicing right now about free flowing is that I make tea and I don't think about it. I just go there, I pick the vessel, put water into it, and that milk at the right time, or for tea leaves at the right time, sugar at the right time. And finally, when I take the tea, pour it, I strain it, pour it, and then take it to my lips is when the first taste and then the judgment comes. Oh, it is good. Oh, this is how it is. So till then, now there is no conscious thought, no planning. There are 5 people, I make tea for 5. If it's for 3, it is made for 3. But there is no thought process behind it. My own little attempt at shall know you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
Now I think if I can't make tea, sir, it just will happen automatically.
That's wonderful. All right.
then that also connecting back to the knowing, doing, being, uh, anxieties or the blocks, the mental blocks, anxieties, etc. Some of these are things which I realized has been part of your reinforced thoughts, beliefs, maybe cultural conditioning, and reinforcing them has been done consciously or unconsciously. Now, what ways in which I do it is sometimes like looking at inspiration from Sir, try to break a few norms. By breaking some norms, you break some axioms, and then things are viable or things are more fluid. Then analyze it and then find a way ahead. What if? Let's do and see. Or leave some degree of trust to it and then make things flow. Linkage analysis, I put a little space behind it because we've just maybe touching the tip of the iceberg, or the iceberg has been spotted here. That is the reality.
Linkage analysis we'll have to try later.
Yes, sir.
All
So
right.
we've just spotted the iceberg. We're not even at the tip of it.